I mean,
From my, Bethel used to work at VDI.
It's huge relationship.
She can help, and I don't know if she could be.
right, she might be able to give you some pointers.
Yeah.
She just did.
So, well, the door doesn't know any better, so she thinks of facilities and shelters, she goes, all right, well, let me, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
What's it say, what did it say in the binder? And.
We found out from the article at Chesterfield, remember the Chesterfield, where they had put in the pad and somehow VDOT realized and said, you can't do that. We need to do that, but GRPT got involved with that to help figure out a solution to that. But it hit the newspaper, we still wouldn't know. But then Bethel had that, Ron Allen had a session at VTA to talk about it. And we were like, look, build in time, because it takes about 9 months to build the shelter. Like, oh.
She good, buddy,
We've done fine, we've got enough shelters.
buddy.
Our that we're doing, you know, I'm sorry, we've been fine with A or B. Now we just don't have.
The help we can give can be on a case by case basis, and I don't know, but just even for all issues. I mean, that's where Andy might be a better.
Honestly, just someone needs to blow the process up. And truth be told, we probably need to go to a state that knows what they're doing and say, where's it working? And below the process, erase all legislation. Who's doing it right? Replicate that. Copy paste.
Right.
Change the word. Colorado. Whatever it is, change the words.
This has been so crazy because Miranda contacted Huntsville County building officials, their mace, after the state building official had said the thing saying counties can approve this, that, you know. He didn't know what she was talking about. He wanted to know if PRTC started this mess. No. Yeah, that's, yeah, it's. But we're right there, we're on the cusp.
It was supposed to be at 6:30, where.
All right. Whoa, sir. How are you?
So.
Why do you think we should reach out to Dick? Think we should reach out to the Northern Virginia, say, hey, we want to let you know, send this letter.
It's probably made its way to them by now. I know, but yeah. Like that, we have a price space.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna send it to you over the deal.
And Alan was just like.
No, I get that. You just verify that. I put that on my calendar. And I wanted us to pick a time
And
to get together too. When
you know, there's all kinds of
you know, like the universe. Especially with everything that's going on.
to do what we can do by case. That would be best case.
Like that. Make someone.
He's like male Alexander.
Yeah.
Dale City one.
In that letter.
You know, like.
Yeah.
There was a
Pond Landing.
very near.
And you're fine.
They can put a shelter within like 15 feet of a light pole or something.
Right, I know.
Play too.
And there's the fence, it's not far
I was like,
behind.
well, I
And
like
then
to
the
get up
other
early.
one's just
So
like,
that's
well,
like-
there's a fence and it's like, but that we have. So, yeah, when I saw it, it was like, well, you've got the light poles right next to it, about. Like, shell down.
I'm trying to.
And it's just, you know.
But
That is maybe 3 feet behind the shelter. All of that.
Except going, when she just has to respond.
Look, see if we can use.
Things evolve. Whatever, on Thursday, as long as we stay long enough for anything stuff in on Friday.
Really?
So that's what she was just gonna say, if we want to come over, then we should do that on Thursday.
It's a straightforward thing.
I did, or, yeah, because imagine one, we're never one. Yeah. Things like that, but sure
Do a great job. If I weren't working, I'm like, come, I have to prioritize.
keep the old shelter there until it gets to the point where a lot of them, you gotta take them safely.
And I owe.
That doesn't tough part, right?
About a time.
That didn't it.
I will.
Just tell you. It's been this, yeah.
Yep.
Got things ready to help.
Thank
Oh, wow, nice.
Just time zone. So they'll replace it.
Have you mentioned something about last did not alert?
So it's not.
My calendar. I said, you can get the. And I would tell Ray, but I just done it. I didn't. All right, well,
I'll
let's,
this if I come in.
let me know if there's some time you think when I can connect, whatever. I'm not working, but, you know, work around my work schedule, your work schedule.
Right.
I'm off on Monday.
Then I was enforcing.
Well, that's what.
Every day.
It's not new.
Yeah.
It's just not new.
And then we're.
Hour-long.
The
restaurant. Stop at McDonald's on the way home.
You've had numerous issues with. I know some things like you and I are in the budget. Is there things that really want me to-
Over bus stop stuff.
Okay.
I need to talk to you about your trash contract.
There's like waffle stuff in there.
Yeah, I was trying to deliver these slaps to do.
I don't.
We always. Yeah.
No, wait, wait.
Put in, some people just budget high.
So.
Yeah, so I've got.
Over at Nova Community College, we have staff that come in about 25, 30 employees, strategic planning, laying out workplace a year. And.
One thing I to here in pepperoni or.
Gotta keep that up.
Yeah, I mean, the staff, at least a year. That's 30% of the.
No, I put it on Facebook.
7-Eleven.
You know, like whatever.
Yeah, sorry that
We have mints to get us.
Give me a lot of money
It's like a retreat.
I'll have some variance.
I rather do the variance that way than be.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I want it.
It's hard not to think.
You're good.
I said, let's do French, but. Perfect.
You gotta go forward because.
I'm
just
here to try to soak up any consolation. And,
The chair is about 10 minutes late, apparently
And there may be
traffic
things
on
we don't know.
I-95.
I'm trying to look on the.
South.
Thank you. And can I get pink and negative on it, but it's gotta have and fade.
Southbound is a mess, northbound's a mess.
It's just gonna.
If you're talking 10%.
Keep very busy.
In our government.
Yeah, it would be.
Right.
Just pass it.
Are we selling, for McDonald's? No, you gave me one.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's why.
We didn't know it would stop. We're supposed to be here at 6:30. Security guard. And he walked there with no.
You doing all right?
At least I trust him.
Yeah.
Right, like, yeah. And it's like, well, this is, I stopped at McDonald's on the way home. I never.
No, God, no.
I don't think it's right on my. There are bigger problems in the world, right? Clearly, if I don't eat, if I miss a meal, it would be a problem. It would not be a problem. I'll give you my mints. This is the one time I didn't grab a snack.
I know.
And me too.
When I thought about it, I had to go to FedEx.
Absolutely. I was like, I can't work early. I have, and I was like, nah, I'm just like, I'll just go there. They always have enough time.
All right, break up the gag. Okay.
It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. We're just talking about food.
Yeah,
Is there ever having a very important political conversation? About like, yeah, like if we didn't get a meal last year, would you like to hear? We would do after 5.
Express.
Gina, if you are and FAMPO both at 6 o'clock, like alternating Mondays. So one gives us food and one doesn't give us food.
Everyone, our chairman is running about 10 minutes late. And, so we are ordering pizza, it's on the way.
Yes, our food vendor decided that they didn't want to clear the second round for some reason.
Waco's right over here.
Doing all right, man.
So.
Everyone's gonna.
So are you going to?
Actually, I think so. We're working today, so this session.
Yeah.
I am, well, most of our family is local. So I'll go to Thanksgiving, my sister-in-law will do. You know how you do the-
There's nothing in like the calendar.
We always have it's lovely. Kids are grown, so like I.
They should.
Searching.
I don't worry that the kids are not outside the fire. Right. So put out here.
Then they bury it in a text and it's yes, exactly.
And they.
Give us.
They're little, that's like.
Good.
Yeah, so. There was a time. Sister-in-law kids really-
I said, okay, fine. But so they
My niece was church
Feel
I had
how-
and they added
That's what I'm saying. Now.
just include all this other area.
The one that
So
actually
it's
They're
I'm just riding on a truck.
how, they eat now, so I don't. They-
Yeah. Thing was there forever, man.
It was. And so, you know, for me, it's mostly.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Backside.
Now, technical compensation,
Okay.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
All I knew was
Buy the portable truck.
that.
You did everything.
I don't think he put the, I think he put the box and the signing and then
He made sign and got whatever box he could get.
So you're gonna get.
One of the two.
Good. And I know I. Do you wanna do that now or you have several hours? Right, so.
Yep.
I will, I knew I needed both my phones to like figure that out.
There he is.
Still driving it. But she just needed, you know. SIM card.
Yeah. Joe.
Yeah.
Like, someone was having.
It's not 95 going south or in. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Jerry. It's just that, so it's like, I think it would this. It's not included, it's, yeah, I just don't.
They do.
Yeah, you don't have to have one.
Probably have a second.
So that's.
That's all I have.
Everybody off the bus.
All right. So good to see some. Glad they put this on the back. You know exactly where you're sitting. I'm like. Well, Deborah. I'm. You plan on not being here? Because if you did, I didn't know about it. You see, oh. Here's what you're- How'd you go?
That was about
Never ending, you know? Are you going to Vaco?
I am not, I've
Because it's already 7:05.
Very well. Well, the good news is.
I don't know if you have a.
January, so I'm in.
We'll miss you down there.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss being.
It's
All
always
right,
fun to go.
so we're gonna go ahead and get started. We got a forum. Me too. Apparently, me too. I think we count, I was late.
But you can start with stuff while we wait for a foreman.
We have four.
Meet the forum.
Okay, so,
I'll pretend that.
so good evening, everyone. We're gonna go ahead and start off. We have a quorum. Before we get into everything, I just want to take a moment of silence and ask everyone to stand for a moment for Mr. Brian Rose. He's a friend and colleague on the ride who lost his life to a tragic accident. So we can just take a few seconds, moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any remote participation?
No, no one is participating
Okay.
remotely tonight.
Okay. And so. Yeah, normally we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Oh, so we could just.
Yeah. All right. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Karen for the safety.
Exactly. No, we're gonna go, yeah, we're gonna get right to preparing for the safety message. Yes, sir.
Byron standing today, just like a bye week in your fantasy football league. I'm the guy that's gonna give you the 2 points so you can be competitive. On this warm day, it's not to forget that we should still prepare for winter. For your vehicle, make sure you keep essentials like food and water, blankets and flashlights and batteries, also for your house as well. In addition, you want to go ahead and maintain your heating systems, making sure those are working properly, and then that you have smoke and carbon monoxide detectors installed. Also, make sure you're winterizing your house, sealing the windows, doors, insulate the pipes to conserve heat and prevent freezing. And then also make sure you stay informed, sign up for any kind of alerts with news stations, use our service, signing up for the Rider Express program, and then just paying attention to any news for any kind of adverse weather conditions so you're prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And so where we are, okay, so roll call. Yes, ma'am.
Victor Angry,
Here.
Andre Bailey. Seated. Kenny Bodie. Margaret Franklin, Tom Gordy.
Here.
Bob Weir, DeShandra Jefferson, Karen Mills, Idris O'Connor, Kim Short, Yesley Vega, Tanisha Allen, Monica Gary, Meg Bumpy, Pamela Young, Pamela Sebeski.
Here.
Ralph Smith,
Here.
Jeanette Rischel. Here. Alana Mensing, Daryl Moore, Janet Holmes.
Here.
Will McIntosh, Deborah Frazier, Lori Hayes.
Here.
Jacob Lane, Kevin Marshall, Zach Trogdon, Todd Horsley.
Here.
Delegate Rosia Henson Jr. Delegate Josh Thomas.
Here.
Senator Jeremy McKay.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Hey, before we go on, just to let everyone know, we got some pizza coming on the way, so we'll have a little bite for you here shortly, okay? Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bodie, second by Commissioner Bailey.
All in favor?
All in favor. There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No one's online. The ayes have it. Thank you, ma'am. Flipping on into this. And now we need a approval for the minutes.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bodie, second by Commissioner Bailey. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions?
One
The ayes have it.
abstention, I wasn't here.
One abstention. Okay, we have Lori, one abstention. The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you for that. And now, Mr. Dalton, Chris Dalton, VRE update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members, good evening. I'll be concise. Just from a system performance standpoint for the month of October, we did see total ridership almost 151,000, close to 7,000 average daily riders for 22 service days. On-time performance is still less than our target at about 76% unaudited. We're looking at a a couple of reports, but I think that's where that'll land for the month of October. I did want to, as it relates to the agenda, Mr. Chair, we do have an information item linked specifically for our draft legislative agenda. And so that's we'll be taking that to the November Operations Board for recommendation to you, and you'll see that back here in December. But I just wanted to call that out. There's some activity that we're doing both at the state and the federal level. Specifically at the federal level, we're working with the Commuter Rail Coalition to push some legislation as it relates to our excess liability insurance coverage that's required for us to purchase. So if you get in there looking at any of that detail and stuff like that, feel free to give myself a call. I can walk you through that a little bit, but again, we'll be bringing that back for further discussion and adoption next month. And then finally, I just wanted to thank this commission, your support. We had a real nice ribbon cutting event last Friday. A lot of you were there. And we've got that will be it for the calendar year 2024. We'll have we look forward to getting over there and cutting a ribbon on the garage at Manassas Park sometime next year or later next year. So we got a couple planned for next year as well. But again, once again, thank you all for your support. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Do I have any? Yes.
I'd like to thank you also, Rich, for a beautiful ribbon cutting ceremony, and the town of Quantico is just ecstatic. Had a meeting with the mayor today, and he's still talking about it. So thank you so much for the level of support, expertise, and finalization of the project. It's a beautiful, beautiful project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we had one public comment. Is that everybody should have a copy of this?
Yes, that's correct. There was one public comment submitted online, and it's been printed out along with the response from staff.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have no speakers in the room. Okay. All right, so our consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. It's been properly seconded. Commissioner Bodie, Commissioner Bailey. No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, moving on. Executive Director time.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
So again, thank you for that moment of silence. That was for one of our operators, Keolis, who unfortunately was killed just past week, so in the past week or two. And so thank you for taking the time. It's obviously had a deep effect on our workforce. We did provide some in-person EAP to support Keolis. Obviously, they're a multinational corporation. They have resources, but I would like to personally thank Becky Mariner and our HR department. We contacted our local partner, Lenovo, and we brought in resources on behalf of PRTC to be available so we could backstop. One of the challenging things that our operations group faces is when a tragedy like that strikes, they have to keep going Monday through Friday, right? They have to be ready at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're fortunate that we are at least able to pivot for a few moments and provide support for Mr. Wingfield, his operation, and do those things. So while tragic, in its moment, at least we were able to come together as an organization and provide that support upon the death of Mr. Rose, and so we could at least take care of the family. So, it obviously affects the organization. On a more positive note, we did have our preliminary ridership for October come in. Again, it's preliminary, and we had the highest ridership that we have seen since the pandemic. We actually hit our total. We could only just squeeze out an extra 800 people. We had 199,200 passengers on the system. If you add in the 4,700 riders in our micro transit, we are actually over 200,000 for the system. But in terms of our fixed route service, we are performing better at or better than we did during pre-pandemic. So this is fantastic. Seasonal swings now starts happening. We start to see Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, we have the holidays. So this is kind of the peak of the peak for us when we hit that October period. So now we'll see the seasonal dip, and then we'll about March start to see our next wave of increases. So we'll look forward to that, which is about March, April is when we do our next major service change. So we kind of tie those things in together. We'll do our next service change in December, which will coincide with the opening of the Neabsco garage here in just 6 weeks or so, really just about a month. Preliminary commuter bus ridership was up 1.3% from October to September to October, excuse me, that was great. Route 612 Gainesville to Pentagon Navy Yard continues to be a top performer with a bunch of trips at or above capacity, and that will be rectified with the new service approved. Hopefully tonight that will be coming through Warrenton. We're taking advantage of that new state level service that will add more trips coming through that university lot. So Warrenton up through University will give us some 15-minute frequencies. Right now, we're sitting at 30 max. That'll make a huge difference, again, using 100% state-funded services. And very similarly, Route 611 Gainesville to Washington, D.C. does very well despite the service losses there and moving to the different commuter lot. Ridership increased almost 10% since last month. We're monitoring which trips are overcrowding. We had identified as a back and forth which route between Lake Ridge and Manassas would have service restoration. So now that we're seeing which routes are consistently performing and we are about to hit that season of service, a little more flexibility. We're going to eyeball and see what happens, but very likely we'll be in a position by about March, April to add in more services both in Lake Ridge as well as Manassas. We're just not doing it now in December, knowing we're hitting that lower ridership period. But we will monitor. We are adding in additional strategic buses. We're not leaving passengers behind, but it's not just printed on the paper schedule. We're doing it in a more flexible way to be a little more efficient, but we're getting a lot of complaints because the customers don't know. So it gives a sense of instability in terms of passengers. Am I going to get the bus or not? But we're working through. Positively, the 3 new commuter service routes that we started really right at a year ago had their highest ridership out of the Stafford-Spotsylvania corridor, just shy of 10,000 for all 3 routes combined. So that's fantastic. And our route number 971, Dale City to Horner Road, DC, has very strong ridership month over month as well. Local ridership increased 4.3% in October over September. So again, all of our routes, commuter service is growing, local service is growing, Western service is growing, I-95 close-in services are growing, I-95 Southern services are growing. We are having a fantastic fall, and it's something to cheer about. We are very, very excited. Route 91, Dale City, continues to be one of our top performers, along with the Dumfries to Woodbridge service. So fantastic services there, along with Route 65, Manassas to Nova Local, operating also very well. So it's not just east, it's also west. So again, we're not just pointing to, we're lagging here, but the system's improving. All of our routes regionally are seeing that growth. Very good things. We did have 3 public hearings the week of October 21st in Front Royal, Warrenton, and Manassas. We had customers show up, concern, I think it's the person who had the public comment. There is just that concern. We have 6 passengers essentially riding an entire fixed route service. It's just hard to continue to justify. It's one of those cases where even if you're the passenger, you get it. You don't want to lose the service, but there's an understanding. We are working to try to set up van pools. So we are active for other solutions. We're our rideshare system. We have opportunities to partner people up to carpool. So it's not as if it's, hey, too bad, so sad kind of scenario. Quite the opposite. We believe in mobility solutions. It's just not a law of the hammer. Not everything needs a hammer. Not everything needs a 45-foot bus for a mobility solution. So we're working through that process. What was very exciting was to have double-digit participation in Warrenton and Front Royal. To have OmniRide show up in Front Royal and have 10 people there, that's like having 10 million people there. We're not out there. So truthfully, we did have mainly customers who currently ride our service. And they're looking at it going, you mean I don't have to drive all the way in to ride the service? That tells us 2 things. Number one, they're excited about not having to drive in. So that's good from whether you call it a congestion viewpoint, a mobility standpoint,
Greenhouse gas emissions.
all those things. And they become ambassadors in the community because they will tell everyone under the sun that they're not having to make this drive. And they will find everyone they possibly can that they know. And they'll tell everyone, hey, you're crazy if you're doing this. And they become our number one ambassador. So we're looking forward to being able to do that. Very, very positive feedback. And those items are on the agenda tonight to A, make that reduction, and B, to add that increase. So we're very excited. We do have a ribbon cutting start on November 15th for the NABSCO garage. We will be providing buses for the backdrop of that. We are very, very excited about that. And I'm sure you've all seen the emails from VDOT. I think if we haven't, we'll include that in the follow-up. They're doing the ribbon cutting for the Opitz ramp right here, about maybe 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet from where we sit right now. If you're really, really excited about cutting ribbons, you can do 2 in 2 days. It'll be a wonderful, wonderful experience. You know, some of us.
Time?
15. On the 15th, 1 o'clock for the NABSCO garage ribbon cutting. The express lane ribbon cutting is at 11 o'clock.
Same day?
Same day.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Bailey is going to get repetitive motion injuries.
Right.
This is our equivalent of carpal tunnel.
Right.
Express lanes are the 14th at 11 o'clock. And then the 15th is in the NABSCO garage
At 1 o'clock.
at 1 o'clock.
Okay, and nothing at 11 o'clock.
I have 11, check that, okay. We'll verify that and have that.
All right. Gotta be where I gotta be.
Yeah, with so many different ribbon cuttings, it's hard to keep up. Especially on my end of things. Those are a couple of key highlights. We're very excited about the opportunity. And we'll be there this weekend with our buses to make sure that all the turning radius, all those different items work. And then we will formally start migrating our transfer point over there in December. November was a little too quick after our most recent service change to make that change. This way, you can, you know, assuming presumptively that we can get the service changes voted in tonight, that was just not enough time to get our drivers to make their pick, have the service changes. We can do this all in December. It's a great opportunity. So it gives a little more continuity for our operations team. They've already got their run cut ready to get to work, get the pick started. But we'll start that on or about December 9th or 10th. And so we'll start official service as a transfer point, which means customers no longer have to be pulled all the way up US 1 to come all the way over here just to make a bus transfer. Talk about a game changer in terms of service performance, consistency, especially when you consider the importance of Richmond Highway as a mobility corridor. So we are very, very excited about that. Any questions that I can answer before I turn the floor over to Mr. Wingfield for his operational update? Sir?
Yeah, for the Warrenton route, should it be good at 15-minute blocks instead of 30?
Yes.
Would that change? Would that be for the entire morning schedule or just a certain high use time?
It'll be the majority of the morning and the majority of the afternoon. These trips will be slotted in between the existing trips that are operating from there. So it'll create that 15-minute frequency, both morning and afternoon.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then the other one is for the local routes for the October service period. Do we know which ones saw the increase, or was there a statistical like anomaly where some local routes really just popped to help show that dramatic increase in overall ridership for the local routes, or was it all even across the board?
It was, some routes were even. The Route 1 corridors have been remaining strong. The 65 stood out. That one really did go up quite a bit in Manassas over some of the other ones. The 53, the Dumfries bus, 52, the Route 1 bus, and the 91 Dale City are about 13,000 riders each one. So they're consistently high. And then that Manassas route stood out as being a high performer for the month.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dr. Bob, what was, 2 things. Number one, what was the date again from the ASCO? Was it the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. And then, were you gonna talk tonight about the survey that you did? Or is Karen gonna talk about that when we went out at 6 o'clock? If not.
We absolutely. So this past month, we can talk about that. We did a couple of transportation town halls, just went out and did some meet and greet. Thank you for reminding me. So long ago, it seems. It was nice and cold. You wouldn't believe that based upon what it is right now. We had 2 transportation town halls. One was at the 234 lot and out there at 6 in the morning, just talk to customers. And just to talk to customers about
how's it going? How are we doing? What's our performance issues? Number one issue we heard was customers want the increased frequency back. They miss having that bus every, whether it was 15 or 20 minutes. Right now, we're at 30-minute frequencies. You could see the slug lines where when our bus pulled up, the slug lines emptied and came back over to us. So a lot of passengers it's just, they're choosing the one or the other.
Thank you.
Some of the feedback, some people we asked, well, how come you are choosing to ride? In terms of slugging, some people said it's, I'm a private contractor. I don't have a federal benefit. So for them, the $11 fare is too much. Other people said, one gentleman said, even though his federal subsidy pays 100% of the bill, he was mad over the double increase in fares. He said, you raised fares twice. I'm just mad.
Me too.
That was just it, and that's okay. It's his preference. One gentleman specifically said out of spite because of the strike 18 months ago. And he was just still mad that the drivers went on strike. And so he kind of then said, well, and there's other issues. He gets to ride in the back seat. So because he's riding in the back seat while slugging, he has more room. So there were other things, but so there's other things at play. But there's just a lot of different reasons people choose to slug. And that's okay. Sometimes like other people said, oh, I'd love to ride the bus, but I want to get to work. That morning was really cold. And so if you're going to stand out on the sidewalk, would you rather stand in the sidewalk when it's cold, or would you rather be in a warm vehicle? You're going to take whichever came first. And that was very evident of what occurred.
Yeah, I think the other thing to consider is, when is the last bus going north?
The last bus out of 234 is around 8:45. That goes to the Pentagon.
Okay. And then is that that's the latest bus in the mornings?
Yes, from 234. From Horner Road, there's some later buses after 9, but at 234.
But what are those times after 9?
Off the top of my head, I want to say 9:05 or 9:10, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there's service to Franconia and Springfield that runs through there also all day.
Then that's the Metro Direct?
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing to consider is our buses going north, our commuter buses. The last route is actually kind of early, right? 9 o'clock is still in the middle of commuting times. And this comes down to a budget issue for us to discuss maybe in the future. But as we look to extend service, I think we should also look to extend the amount of buses we have going north after 9 o'clock. And then is the last evening bus at 8:02, or is that the later one?
We have a couple lot connectors that operate later than that. We have the last bus leaving the Pentagon at 9 o'clock.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, go down to Horner and then it connects down to the 234 lot. And then we have something similar for the western lots also.
Sure. Yeah, and because I used to catch that, I think the 8:02 when I was taking the evening bus was the latest one from the Pentagon. And so that's another thing to consider, just convenience. If I don't have to be at work until a little bit later, I can't take the bus. Right? And so that means that's money that's not going into the bus system. So that's just something for us to chat about, I think, later, because again, it's going to come down to cost. Can we afford to run buses later? That's a discussion for us to consider, but I think convenience is a huge issue. I know it was a huge issue for me, both in the mornings and in the evenings. And if I can catch a slug at 9:15, that's my only option coming out of Prince William. So just something to think about.
Oh, we got you. Okay, I want to jump in first. I will say this is a very healthy discussion because at the end of the day, as one of my friends used to say, this is why we need more bus routes and services. And really, it's going to come down to what you said about, which is budgeting and how we're going to do this. But this OmniRide system is a very efficient and effective system that we are going to have to invest in. And more routes and more services is going to be really the game changer of it all. This is cool because I get to say Commissioner McPike and not Senator McPike. Commissioner McPike.
That was a compliment.
Yes, sir. It's great. It's common because we're all commissioners in there. And I got a commissioner here over here. Commissioner McPike. Yes, sir. That is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess if, looking at that analysis, Bob, if I'd be interested in sort of what the
the value of road capacity and time value. I'm sure there's a sweet spot, right? In terms of how people make choices and what the economic, I'm sure there's a curve that says this is where, as a board, we should consider based on the data of the road capacity and typical road volume, and where people make that economic choice of drive versus bus and why that value. And so, you know, as we consider system-wide sort of changes, I think it'd be helpful as a new commissioner, maybe figure out what that data. There's lots of great cell phone data now on driver trips and the rest of it, and how that relates to our system. If you're taking a look at that, I would love to have that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Henson, thank you. And speaking of cell phones and convenience and surveys, and y'all may have already done it, I'm an IT guy. So is there any apps that you all may be developing for riders to get alerts or anything around that nature? Because I noticed, I think I was going to travel somewhere. Sorry, correction. I was putting out a notice to my constituents on how to get to DC for a rally that was happening. I had to go to the website versus just direct them like, oh, just download the Omni Ride app or PRTC app in order to get these notifications. So I don't know if y'all, I didn't see anything, but just something to look at.
We've used Everbridge, which is the same technology that the county utilizes for the emergency alerts. One of the challenges we face is that a lot of our customers who work in Pentagon, secure facilities, they're not permitted to get alert driven. So with Everbridge, you can choose email, text, both. You can have the Everbridge app. You're really given 3 or 4 different choices. So we've gone that direction. We had a separate Rider Express system that kind of with our server changeover, it just no longer functions. So we've chosen that because it kind of checks the box on all 3. So for example, even tonight, we've gotten to, just like I got my red flag warning through Everbridge. Separately, we got the Omni Ride alerts that said due to traffic on 95 and 395 northbound express were delayed. So we utilize that consistently for service.
So for, I guess me, because I'm a unicorn, I use Everbridge with Homeland Security. So I have different notifications. So trying to segment PRTC, VRE versus the others that I'm looking at, I think it makes it kind of difficult.
What's good about ours is it is a separate feed. So my Prince William alert is a completely different number than my Omni Ride alert. And I just like literally did a save as and I label it. So it says Omni Ride alerts Everbridge.
And then for planning trips, they can't use
For planning trips. No, we're right now going through a process. We had a vendor that we utilized for tracking that quite frankly just did not work with some of the challenges we faced. So we're right now in the process of identifying, this is an in the weeds thing, but it's the GTFS, it's the live Google Transit feed, how it pushes out the data, what app software you use, whether it's trip planning. We're going through that process now to figure out what do we do, and then getting back on that, especially as our local service is so robust right now. The old days where we were 70% commuter service, it really didn't matter that much because you went to the park and ride lot. You went to Corner Road, you went to 234, you went to university, you stood there and a bus came through every 8 to 15 minutes. The frustration was in the afternoon if you were standing out on 14th Street, well, where's my bus? You know, you just wanted to know if it was coming close. So that mattered. This is probably a good time as any while I continue to talk to mention the pizzas are here. And Christine worked really hard to give you guapos, but apparently they decided not to deliver your dinner. So thank you, Joe, for helping to get that done very quickly.
I did not.
I wish we had known. We would have appreciated it earlier.
Right.
We would have ordered the pizzas at 6:30 and not 6:52. But so we're working through that process now to figure out, and it comes back down to, do we want to try to do a trip planner in that? What are those different kinds of features? And so trying to figure out who does it well, who doesn't do it well. And sadly, some of the companies that bid on them then go out of business or they get bought by somebody. And if you get bought by somebody, then they make it their secondary or sometimes tertiary business. And then they want to sell you on the more expensive version that they offer that integrates with something else that they don't do well.
Certainly good.
The chair is distracted by pizzas. but-
Yeah, it smells good. It just,
I'm just
it
kidding.
smells, oh my God, it smells good. I don't know where I was in this.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead,
1, 2,
'cause somebody else
3.
might have the same question.
So you can start it out.
We'll do Gordy first and then.
Mr. Long.
I guess I was. I was wondering if it would be nice if there were some kind of app where you could both see the routes for the OmniRide buses. And then like that would mesh with some of the other,
It exists.
it does,
That's what I was
that's what I was trying, that's what I wanted.
City Mapper, which I found out about in London, is now available here for Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And it connects you to metro, rail, bus, scooters, bikes, scooters. So it's it's fantastic. You put in where you want to go and it tells you every single way using all these different transit options of how to get there, how much time it will take. So yeah, City Mapper.
City Mapper.
Yeah, so we're not, but we're not using City Mapper OmniRide?
In North America, the most dominant app is called the Transit app. And again, it comes down to the Google Transit feed, how robust is the data? It's so.
Mr. IT is not his head of.
Other transit systems in the US who have had their own version of it, like for example, Orlando. I was just there, they had their own version of it, they've abandoned it, their own version and gone to something else. The challenge you face is, well, everybody wants it to be, well, I want to pay for my trip in there as well. Well, if you then utilize
Right.
the transit app, well, then they don't do fare payment. So now you have to have the PAW Pass. I was just in Orlando, so I got to experience this. You have the PAW Pass, which is completely separate from your transit app. So now you're bouncing back and forth between the two. And that may not be a bad thing, to be fair. I mean, because you're only paying once versus tracking. So this is one of the challenges our industry faces is we're not good at technology. And the vendors that deploy the technology are not stable. In a lot of these instances, and we're slow. I will just simply share this. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. The CEO of Dallas's transit system got up and talked about they finally deployed their state-of-the-art app after only taking them 4 years to deliver it. And that's Dallas.
Was there a ribbon cutting?
Probably. I mean, someone was there for the opening of
A virtual one. Good question.
But in the meantime, how many updates had Uber made? How many companies had come and gone out of business? And it's just something that we face as an industry. We're slow, we're floppy, we don't move as quickly as we could be. And it's just something that, quite frankly, we talk about it and we lament it. It's a little bit disgusting in terms of what our industry looks like. And so seeing what the transit app is doing right now and how it's a little more aggressive in terms of this like, look, we're going to give you really good data if you can push it through. Pay over here, track over here. That's kind of where it's going to in the US. And you're seeing a lot of that if you think about it with websites where you do all your shopping and then at the end you do Apple Pay. Or you do all your shopping on the Wegmans app and then the last thing you do is you push through in Apple Pay. What's really interesting is if you think about just the final thing I'll comment on that is, you know, the big push toward regional fare collection. Well, MATA is going to go open source at the end of the year. So they're going to end up going through Apple Pay at the end of it or Google Pay. So all that emphasis, so that's kind of what we're looking at is track and then you just double click on your phone and do Apple Pay. Maybe that's where we end up going. In the meantime, we just want customers to know where their bus is. That's where we're putting our attention. Where can the customer know where the bus is?
Yeah. So I appreciate that question. I grew up every so often about the Google Maps and other stuff. I at least send people to OmniPay because at least it has the schedules, right? So it's imperfect, but at least I have something because sometimes I usually would just send people the website that has the full schedules, but as you know, on the phone, it gets tiny real fast, so it gets hard for people to put in. 1, 2, something I was pleasantly surprised about, which I didn't notice until near the end of the day, was I was at Chin Park on election day. I saw an OmniRide and every so often coming up, picking people up, dropping people off. So it's good.
Yes.
I heard of temporary solutions, but I even have a better temporary solutions. I don't know about Android, but
for iPhone users, if they do go to omniride.com or wherever, and then if they click a little box that has an arrow at the bottom of their screen, you can literally add OmniRide to your home screen so that it shows up as an application. So that could be another temporary solution. So like right now, I have an app and I can just click on it and it pops up and I can see the schedule.
One other really nice thing that people, if you're not a regular transit user,
Yeah.
is if you just go with Lyft, you can do this on your way home tonight, just for fun. Well, yeah, which there's some of the stuff on the street if we get out of here early enough. Is on your way home, especially if you live in the Pennsylvania County area, instead of go home on your Google Maps, but across there's an option for transit. Most everyone just drives, but on that top bar is the transit option. Press that transit option, and what it'll do is it'll give you a couple of bus options. And if you're in the area, do that in the middle of the day, and you'll have certain lines pop up, and it'll tell you when the next bus comes and how long it'll take to get there. Just like that. So it'll tell you to get to, 53 Grand Park Road doing 39 minutes, Lake Ridge 34. And then if you click on it, it'll give you where to walk to the nearest stop, when it's coming, and it doesn't have the bus tracker built into the Google tracker feed. We're actually working through that process now to get that pushed into their app specific. But it's built into every single, if you have the Google Maps feature on your phone, it's there. And I think we're built into Apple Maps because they're using the same data stream. But by the way, that works in DC. So if you're in DC and you're like, hey, I'm over by the White House and I want to get over to Union Station, you can pop just Union Station, pick the transit app, and you're like, okay, I don't want to mess with the bus schedule, I want to ride Metro. You just scroll down and it'll tell you, okay, I'm gonna walk to this Metro station. It'll put me on this, it'll put me on the orange line, I'll transfer at the Gallery Place, and then I'll ride red line to here, and it'll just move you through the system. So. But all that stuff about 234 a lot, then we did it over at Warner Road.
Yep, we did.
And we had a good time over at Warner Road. Supervisor Angry, Supervisor Bodie, and Delegate Henson were able to come out and join and talk to customers, and a much more slugging robust plugging operation, there. A lot more people headed to Crystal City, Arlington, and then the other places where really when they were headed in out of the 234 lot, they were either headed to Pentagon or DC. There, it was all points of view. Really trying to get those two places. And the other thing that we've done is one of the things we identified at the 234 lot, about 50% of the light bulbs were burned out. So we've sent some maintenance requests in. We identified some severe speeding issues. So we sent in some requests there. Don't know what can really be done to mitigate some of that. We've suggested some speed bumps potentially. But that's some of the complaints and issues that we saw.
Can I just chime in with you on that, please? If you haven't seen that and gone to a community lot in the morning, watch, travelers actually travel. One thing about that express lane, it literally starts from whatever that street is that they turn off to come into the lot. People speed from there because you're already getting to you're on ramping to the express lane. So people are walking across the street. It's super dark. They have no road best, no lights, and there's only one crosswalk, but they don't care about the crosswalk. I don't mean that they don't care, but they're crossing wherever they can cross, and cars are doing at least 75, 80 miles an hour coming onto this road, which clearly is the express lane because that's where you begin to pick up speed. And once they hit that curve, they're on that road, and if you've been on the express lane, that is a racetrack in itself. So there must be something that should happen with some type of speed humps or speed table to actually let people understand that is still a parking lot, like that's still a commuter lot, and you should slow down to get to the on-ramp and then get on and then do what you do.
Yes.
But watching those folks really come there and seeing the slug line next to the omnibus pickup point is the reason why I say we need more buses at one time, because it's true what he said. They'll be standing in the slug line, the bus will come, the folks waiting in line to get on the bus, and the folks and the slugger are slugging. But if the next bus pulls up, they'll jump on the bus because the bus is now there and then we'll have to slug. But it's literally either or, waiting to see which one happens first so they can get on the bus and go. I think that tells us that the system going into the city and how much is picking back up for folks going back to work, we should have more bus times, more buses that come more frequent to get people and pick them up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, Bob, one of the data points I'd love to understand is also the service level agreement between the express lanes and our service. And as we're seeing, we have pretty good data, right, in terms of the trips, but part of the express lane service level agreement is also the ability to clear lanes and clear accidents and the rest of it in terms of a whole service. And so that impacts directly into this service. So I'd love to understand how we communicate visibility into issues. We don't have issues, but also between VDOT, express lanes, and this service. May not be something that's been dealt with before, but as an overall service level agreement, I would love that integration between the VDOT contract, express lanes, Transurban, and this group.
Did we ever get to this presentation? No. Stop it. I'm looking like, he said no. Did we ever get, we know, before you begin, I just want to offer also that food is here, so you're more than welcome to get up and grab your plate and sit down as we continue through this, okay?
Yeah, the pizza over here, and Althea was kind enough to pull in some of the items out of our refrigerator, especially the fresh fruit and items such as.
Actually, this is the delivery that was supposed to be here at 6:30.
Oh,
This
well, there
is
we are.
build your own soft taco.
So that's walk pizza. So we got build your own soft taco. Thank you, Althea. We got build your own soft taco. We got pizzas. Please get something to eat. We'll continue on with these presentations. Are you ready?
Fire away, Mr. Wingfield.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, good evening. Feel free to grab your food, and while we go through it, I'll make it brief. We had another strong month in October. Only did be hampered by the news of us losing one of our very own, and so it's been a somber mood around the operation, and that you know, you leave at 11:30 p.m. and say goodnight to someone, and they don't come back at 5, 6 a.m. And so that's been sort of the mood around the workplace. In terms of our challenges, recruitment and retention remain the top one, but our most current and what's in front of us is the new service change and being able to meet the new service that we'll put on the road from Warrington and out in Front Royal. So missed trips. Again, another strong month in October. We only had 1 missed trip, down from 3 the month prior. I put some red squares around December, January, and June, July, because those were the last 2 months that we had service changes. So as you can see, we've seen a little uptick in some of the missed trips. So as we go into this December, the game plan is to still keep our missed trips down. It's our short-term goal, as I mentioned earlier. As we look at vehicle availability, we're still above target, so vehicle reliability continues to remain strong. And then finally, miles between service interruptions. Had a really strong month in the maintenance department. So said I'd be brief. I'll open the floor for any questions.
That's brief. Yes. We'll start with Commissioner Bailey and Commissioner Pike.
Did we hire our new maintenance manager? Did I miss that?
We've had the same maintenance manager for over a year and a half. We had a new facilities manager that we brought on board.
Yeah, facilities manager.
Yes.
So he's on board.
Alberto, yes, he is on board. He is he's now to a place where he's having regular meetings with the staff at PRTC, coming up with the game plan for how we will plan for facility expenses on the go forward. So yeah, he's on board, doing well.
Okay.
Progressing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the question is probably for you, Mr. Winfield, is the charts before us in terms of targets. Those are contractual targets and KPIs, or the industry targets and KPI. Note this industry average per trip and the rest of it. And so I'd love to see, Bob, if it's all right with you, to see contract level requirements and targets versus also industry standards, just to help consistently keep the board aware of industry performance levels, which is contractual performance levels.
So we had a discussion on this a couple of months ago, probably right before you joined the commission, in that our contractual requirements are more stringent overall.
No, I was,
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair, I was here for that, when
Okay.
I asked that question then, and I asked that we be provided data that is in relation to our contract performance as well as our industry average requirements, just so we are consistently understanding of where our contract requirements are and where industry benchmarks are. I think it's, for me, it would be helpful. If the, Mr. Chair, the board doesn't agree, that's fine, but I think it's helpful information.
I'll have to circle back.
Very helpful.
Okay. I thought we did that. My apologies. I must have misunderstood the issue. I'll circle back.
No,
Clean
yeah,
that up.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be helpful for my own edification.
Any more questions, comments? Sir, thank you.
That's my report. Thank you.
All right. Now, you might want to get something to eat. I was gonna talk dollars and cents.
And I will just mention that we do have an article from our, he was, when he wrote it, our professional development fellow, which is our terminology for an intern, Mr. William Phelps. He has been now hired on as our the junior planner, for lack of a better term, better two. But it's on how microtransit has been revamped in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, smaller community. But it's really about integrating microtransit and bus. And you say, well, how does that apply to a robust community like ours? I think our fixed route service locally is actually pretty small. You know, we're predominantly a commuter-based fleet overall. So this gives us a good look at how you can integrate and then kind of where we look to the future as Prince William specifically, if you think about how we have the small area plans and the innovation plans and how we try to link those areas with fixed route service. But when you get there, utilizing microtransit to move around in that area. So it just gives a nice peek into some of the ways that we're thinking moving into the future. So with that, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, turn it over to Phil. Yes, sir. All right, setting the stage for the budget discussion. What we have done over the past month is we had multiple meetings with our board members, the budget committee to get further information back in our process. We started out back in the September timeframe, feedback from the budget committee to understand where does the money come from? What are the revenue sources? What are the revenue streams? Came into the commission at the October meeting. Phil provided that presentation, answered the questions. And then what we do is we come in and we talk about expenses. Where's the money going? And then, so that's what we're going to be doing this month. The most important message is what we predicted last year is what is occurring. We are having a very consistent year, as Phil's going to describe. The combination of things such as the service enhancements, the management of cost containment, all of those different factors are having a very positive impact in terms of what is predicted is expected. For this year to next year, we'll get a little bit more in detail. And then more importantly, just kind of teeing up what's going to occur. There's two things I specifically want to mention. One is we'll be having another final round of budget presentation sessions. I believe Christine already has that scheduled for the commission on November 13th. And so we'll be providing what is then a true up of those revenues as well as the expenses. One of the challenges when doing these presentation discussions is we made our last service change and in July, the end of July. So we really only had August and September data. Now we have that last month. We have a better sense of where things are, a more refined number, which we'll continue to refine throughout winter and spring. But also one of the conversations we want to have is, as we heard from the budget committee, is that Christine will be contacting each member of our commission who is on the bus sponsoring jurisdiction to ask one simple question. We have some service assumptions that if there was opportunity, what types of services you would want to see, whether it's in your district or beyond. Because one of the things we've got is the opportunity that, yes, we do need to balance the budget. We do have, as you'll see, a hole. But if you were to want to do more, if you want to restore some past services and go beyond that, what we don't want to do is only have a doom and gloom scenario. We want to have an opportunity scenario. And so we'll be doing that to have that conversation so we can at least put together an opportunities list. If we don't have an opportunities list, then you'll never have an opportunity. So we just want to be able to have that, take that step. and bring that forward. These are not hour-long meetings, but it's really what is going on in your district? What are those kinds of things that are of concern that either A, you're hearing from your constituents, and if anyone else just wants to share feedback, we're more than welcome to do so. But there's only so many hours between now and a budget committee meeting, those kinds of things. We can try to include all of that, but I want to try to be very targeted in the next couple of weeks to try to get that included so we can cost it out, put in a map and have it available to the commission. We have to put an agenda out in 3 weeks, basically, give or take. So there's a limited amount of time. The great news is we have months and months and months until we put together a final informal agenda. So it's not the one and only time we have a conversation, but this is an opportunity before we come back in December to bring the budget back for jurisdictional consideration. What we intend to bring back to you for jurisdictional consideration in December is really an understanding of where things are. And most important, it's the revenue options within control. So we're going to bring back some scenarios here that'll include what are some options for fares, for advertising, what are some service reduction options if we have an unbalanced budget, and then finally, what are those enhancement options? Restore some services that were lost last year, and then what are some opportunities to improve things on the commuter side of the house, as well as local routes and services, micro transit, fixed route, et cetera. So with that, and we always say it, but I think it bears repeating, the time you take to help us with the committee meetings are unbelievably invaluable. Every single meeting we've had has improved our product and our process, and we're better for it. So thank you.
And can I say before you begin, Bill, the beauty of this process, and I just want to say, it's actually not anything really new, but we have a lot of new commissioners, and we've added more because my goal for this is that if you have questions about the budget that's going on in PRTC, that you have access to Dr. Sander, you have access to Phil, you have access to the budget committee. Budget committee, can you just raise your hands if you don't know who your budget committee is? And if you care to even want to be a part of it, never too late for that. Of course, we got to talk to Christine about that. But my point here is that we really dive deep into this process so that we have a clear understanding of this budget as it's presented to all of our jurisdictions at the appropriate time. So you know, as much as you need it within 3 weeks, and any other time after that, please ask all the questions you need. Please get with the folks you need to get with. And if you got something to add, and I really love what Commissioner McPike was speaking to, how we understand contracts, and like that, Commissioner McPike, it sounds so good. And just to make sure that we all understand that, so we can get a really good process together, a really good package together going forward, so we can just understand it at the end. So with that, I'll stop and we'll give you the floor. Thank you, sir.
You know, I do want to, I just have to echo, having the budget committee is something I appreciate greatly. Getting feedback in that setting, it's a maybe more casual setting. People are just off the cuff. Hey, what about this? And you'll see in this presentation, if you're part of that, you saw it in the last one in October. You know, your comments have been integrated into this presentation. So it gives me really good help in communicating things that are important to you, who what we're here for. So, you know, I'm just going to touch briefly on this slide here. Bob did discuss it, but the whole point of this is to create the baselines. And something I've stressed in the revenue discussion in October, and stress again in this discussion, is no surprises. We're proposing what we have here for the baseline is the same service levels from the current fiscal year, and the dollar amounts that we're showing for both revenues and expenses are exactly what we presented in fiscal 25 for the fiscal 26 budgets. So there's no surprises. We've discussed this with a variety of folks, and we want to really try to show that consistent budget moving forward. The goal is going to be to bring something in December, as Bob said, for us to forward to the jurisdictions, which is part of our normal process. And you could kind of say that's where the real work would begin at that point. That's when we'll really dig into details of what's going on in the budget and what we're going to look to do. So with that, I'm going to hop right in here. This is operating expense summary, and truthfully, this is just our budgetary categories for the expenses of the organization. Again, all consistent with the things that we said last year, but the thing I want to highlight is what you have in blue, and that is the bus service contract. As you would expect, that's the vast majority of what we do. If you couple that with fuel, it is 75% roughly of our overall budget is delivering service as well as the fuel for the service. But I'm going to go through all these sort of individually and in some groupings just to get a feel for what's going on within the organization. And then the next slide here, we're gonna touch on briefly is the capital expense summary. We discussed this on the revenue side of the house as well, but as you would expect, vehicles is what we do, right? So the capital plan is largely for vehicle replacements. But there's also, servers, computers, transit center expenses. The facility is aging. We do have things popping up. And it's important for us to point out, then we look at some of our peer agencies, if you will, that, what we do in the fleet is pretty comparable when you look at the size of overall capital plans, the size of overall fleets, and what is being spent on a regular basis to support the fleet. We're very much in line with what you would expect to see and what we see from our peers. So fleet, again, we're bus companies. This is what we're doing, and those organizations are doing the same thing. So, we are in line with them, and these are critical expenses for us to look into. And to keep replacing as we go on. So jumping right in here, the personnel expense. The only difference in this year's personnel expense will be one budgeted full-time equivalent increase. We discussed this is actually approved by the commission a couple of months ago, is a grant specialist role, something that came up, we discussed at that time, but in a very short period of time, we've gone from about 20 grants to 90 grants. And that is a tremendous amount of additional grant work. We're fortunate this position is fully funded by GWRC. So it is, it is being paid for sort of outside of our traditional funding sources, which is great. But we are generally pretty consistent, full-time equivalents. And getting into our benefits here, that is your healthcare, your retirement, your dental, workers' compensation, those sorts of things that you would tend to see. But again, a consistent year over year, with the one addition being in an area that's getting a very significant workload increase, and it's being funded from outside the organization. This next category here is what I consider to be support activity expense. This is contractors for IT, facilities maintenance, equipment preventative maintenance, service agreements, cloud agreements, printing, marketing, audit, security, legal, and all this stuff, right? These are all the things that come in support of the organization and the mission of the organization. And a lot of it is again, contractors that we utilize, to help with things that we need to do. Funny thing about information technology, it's something that I've learned in this organization. We have about 80 different modules and contracts that come with running the various IT components of what we do. Things on buses, things in buildings, cloud agreements. It's a lot. And that's where a lot of this stuff, this is where you will see those items. This right here is fuel and utility use. This is mostly energy consumption for the organization. There is a little bit of this traditional sort of telecommunications in here, as you can see in utilities. But this is again, our energy consumption for all intents and purposes. It's important to note that we purchase future contracts. What we do is we work with our fuel vendor, and we pick a moment in time where fuel pricing is good, and we buy the next 12 months of fuel. And they give us pricing. We check in with them 2 to 3 times a week. After the new year, we'll begin to do that, and we'll look to lock in our fuel prices for a 12-month period. We buy 2 contracts per month. One fuel contract is equivalent to 42,000 gallons of fuel, and we use about 1.35 million gallons of fuel in a year. There is some fuel we do not buy via contract because there's flexibility in service levels, and so we want to make sure we're not buying fuel that we can't accept delivery of. So we buy the remainder of our fuel, what is called on the spot market, which is essentially just say whatever the market price is at the time we need the fuel. And that's really how we go about purchasing our energy. At the time we started this budget, I think we were in about 325 was what we were thinking a gallon might be. But again, monitoring it, working with the fuel contractor, we were able to secure a price of $2.75, which is great. I should also note that this price does include the kerosene additive. For those maybe who are unaware, in the wintertime, there's kerosene added to our fuel, to our diesel fuel, that helps prevent the freezing. And so that usually comes at a roughly 30% premium per gallon, and that is included in the pricing. Question?
Yeah, I just want to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but purchasing a future contract saves us money.
Yes.
So I think that's important to note.
Absolutely. I was gonna touch on that. It's an excellent point. It saves us money and it gives us budgetary security. When we're putting our budget together, we generally, by the time you're approving it, we have the number that we know fuel is going to be for the next 12 months. And that's a really important thing for us. We've seen what fuel markets can do and have done in the past. And so, you have to be careful of that. Yes, Mr. Yes.
What is the, past practice or current practice in terms of leveraging other systems, fuel acquisitions?
This is actually, this fuel procurement is done, what we actually is being bid on is the delivery price, and that is actually done through a consortium in Northern Virginia. So that is where the actual competition ends up being really coming into place. The last thing I'll point out about this is that there is something called the paper cost. When you buy fuel very far in advance, you're actually not technically buying the fuel, you're buying the paper fuel, you're buying the instrument, if you will, the financial instrument. We work with our fuel provider and they work with us on doing that. But that's how we're doing this. There is a premium for that. That is roughly in the 20 to 30 cents per gallon as well. That is baked into this cost also. So it's just something I wanted to point out. And on to really, the core of what we do is delivering services. I'm going to touch quickly on the van pool part first. The van pool these are monthly subsidy payments that go to the van pool operators. In exchange for them getting that funding from us, they report their statistics into the National Transit Database. And by them doing that, they earn Section 5307 money that we use to help fund our operating budget. It's a great arrangement for all of us. We help alleviate the burden a little bit on their costs, and then we get some earnings that they would otherwise not be able to use. And it really helps the organization out, but that's what that is. And then really the lion's share and the big part of what we're doing, I touched on this briefly in the beginning, the bus service contract. It's the management, operations, and maintenance of the bus service. And if you add the fuel in there, it's approaching 75% of the total expenses of the organization. And this right here, this is route by route, essentially, who pays for which routes. And when we go through the budgetary process of perhaps having to look at routes for reductions to balance the budget, we thought it was important, and we did this last fiscal year, and we're going to do this year. There will be actual dollars attached to each one of these routes to show what it costs and who is paying for it. If we need to get in a situation where service reductions have to happen to balance the budget, it's very important to know who's paying for that, so that way they realize the savings. And briefly to touch on this, if you look at the leftmost box, that is our commuter services that are 100% state funded. Last cycle, we chose not to really prioritize these because they would not save local jurisdictions money. And so it didn't really make sense to look at those for potential reductions. In this middle box, those are local services. They are 100% funded by our bus sponsoring jurisdictions. But again, in last budget cycle, we chose not to prioritize those for reductions because those are lifeline services. Those are the local services of people who frankly might not have another choice if their route is cut. And so what ended up happening was a lot of the reductions we looked at came from this far right box, the commuter services that have some mixture of grant funding as well as local jurisdictional funding. And when we had to make reductions, we looked into this box to do that, in part because the people who are utilizing these services oftentimes could drive to another park and ride lot not that far away and still continue to use our service. As has been discussed, we've seen it in our ridership levels. We think we've retained a lot of those folks, which is really great news. But again, this is what I think the commission, asked us and how they wanted the prioritization. This year could potentially be different. We're not making any assumptions about that. Our intention is, though, will be to lay out the exact cost of these and who's paying what, so decisions can be made when we get to that point. So I just wanted to share this with everybody so they can start getting a feel for what routes there are and who's sort of paying for them and what percentages they're being. And so finally, where are we, right? We did a presentation on revenues. We've done a presentation on expenses. Again, want to stress these are exact same numbers that we presented in fiscal 25 for the fiscal 26 budget. So there's nothing that has changed in there. There are a couple things I want to point out very quickly on the bottom. You'll see there's a $12 million deficit to start. That said, there is good news on that front as we're preparing for the next cycle, the next month's budget discussion. We do think there will be in this top right box here, we think that's the fuel tax balance. We do think there'll be some funding there that we'll be able to utilize again this year. The other thing I think we're feeling comfortable about is that inflation has cooled tremendously. And also with the new buses coming into service, with the improved practices with Keolis, we're seeing really good control on our maintenance expenses, and we're very excited about that. So I think that not only is that $12 million number not going to be what we bring forward, I think it's going to even be perhaps lower than the subsidy request that we needed to ask for last year. But that's what that box on the right is. I want to point out. This is where Prince William County did help fill the gap for our budget. And you see the grantor's tax, the transient occupancy tax, and then some funding from the general fund. We have not made any assumption that those fund sources will be available again this year. So you see the zeros as our starting point here. And again, that is what's sort of creating this 12 million, there's other reasons, but that's what's creating this $12 million deficit for us. But again, I think we will have a little bit of motor fuels tax balance to utilize. And I also think we're gonna have very good news on the expense front for a variety of reasons that's gonna help us bring that number even lower. To refresh your memory, and to balance the budget last year, Prince William County came through with about $10 million. And we think we're gonna be able to ask for a little bit less than that $10 million this year. So it's not, we still have a deficit, but we think that things have gotten better and we're feeling very confident that we'll be able to present even better numbers than what we're showing here. So again, the purpose of this is to present that baseline, to keep the consistency with the things we told you last year were gonna happen for this year, make sure there's no surprises, get out very early in the process, which we are, and hopefully we can get a budget that gets advanced to jurisdictions in December. And then that leaves us really from January on to do, like I said, sort of the real work, have more of the meetings and all the discussions and share information that needs to take place at that point. So again, just to recap where we are, we touched on this slide, it's the same as the first one. But again, we're looking to bring a budget forward in December. We will have a menu of what every service costs. If we need to reduce, you will know what we need to reduce. You will know what it costs to do that. We will have also any type of revenue options that we have under our control, such as potentially fares or advertising revenue. And we'll also have a list of the restorations and improvements. I've heard a variety of discussion at this table today about things that we may want to look to do. So we're gonna have some of those things on the table. They might not be things that happen today, but they're things that will be there and that we'll constantly be able to discuss and have a sort of a understanding of what they would cost if we do choose to deliver those. So with that, I'll open it up to questions that there may be on the budget at this point here.
Well, I'll just start by saying, first of all, thank you for this presentation. There's a lot of deep dive information in there. Two things that really are key to me, critical on it, is one is our Keolis contract. That clearly is our operators and the bulk of everything we do. So I see that number, and there's not much wiggle room we can do in that and really trying to discuss that. So that plays a big role. The other is interesting. I didn't realize that about our motor fuel and the gas. So basically, you try to catch it and lock it in at a great rate. If the next day it went down lower than that, you don't get the change.
That's correct. Our goal, my goal, and our goal when we're doing this is to try to beat the price that we currently have. That's the first goal that we have. If we can get it a little bit lower than what we've got today, we feel like that's a win. So that's really what we're trying to do. But the other thing secondarily is really to have that predictability. We do not want to go into a budget year without knowing where one of our major expense drivers, what that's going to be. So if we can lock that in, that's very valuable to us.
Yeah, that's really good to know. I saw some hands. I did see some hands. Okay. Commissioner Bailey, then we'll go Commissioner. Okay.
I just wanted two things really. One is I appreciate the comparison that you did with Dash and the little box. That helps us a lot as well so from an industry standpoint, let us know where we are. But the other thing is I also appreciate the fact the grant writer and it's paying for itself, because that's something that we did talk about.
Yep.
And it's critical to the bottom line as well. So good job on that. And the alignment I just got from my friend here about, what was that? We talked about the diesel and kerosene. No clue. So thank you for that. Yeah. Did you know that? Okay.
That is why you have what is called summer fuel and winter fuel, and your fuel prices go up, even in your car.
Yeah.
They add that, even they're basically pumping it, refining it, or pumping it across through pipelines across the US. So your fuel is a little more expensive in winter because they're adding that kerosene even for your car.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. Floor is yours.
Mr. Chair. Curious in terms of the local fair, in terms of marketing to high school kids. Any of them, and I hear they are like me, I may not have made it to high school one time consistently. And are we marketing like the student ID free ride, or like the more we connect our youth to the opportunities of transit opportunities, the more we're laying the ground for future marketing and knowledge base. I may have missed school a few times because I worked early, but I also occasionally napped before school. And I may have had to walk through snow, of course, when the local service did that to school. But I'm just curious in terms of that future marketing, how this connects into our local system and our local future marketing and how we connect the dots to other problems we have in terms of truancy and other things and making sure we have folks that have opportunities for rides.
Couple of things there. One, having the zero fare local already takes one of the huge barriers out of the way. And that's a great advantage to the Prince William County schools, Manassas City schools, et cetera, is they don't have to then deal with the burden of past shuffling, having worked with Knox County schools in Tennessee, Boise City schools, Richland County School, Richland 1, Richland 2, et cetera. That barrier is out of the way. So the kids can just hop on board and go. We are fortunate in that Althea and her marketing team have a long-standing history working with the schools. Elementary school, we start them young. We're actually inside the elementary schools as well as working with middle and high schools to talk about our available services, et cetera. So we have a long-standing working relationship to market that. And then of course, we do have a relationship with the central office as well, continuously promoting that. It's tough to get through the cacophony of noise and some of that sometimes. But we do have student ridership on a regular basis. Matter of fact, I just rode last week with multiple students on the fantastic route 91 and 92, 2 weeks ago, I should say. And we had active student ridership, and they're riding our routes to leave school to get to school. So we can always do more, and we continue to do that. But our partnerships, engaging in the community, continue to build.
How do we collect that data?
Mainly
from a driver anecdotal, or is it like, do we show an ID or do we do something that engages from our own data perspective?
We used to have, with our past programs, we used to actually collect the data. Now, with the pandemic, we got away from a lot of that. This next year in our budget process, we're going to be including survey data once again. Again, we got away from it because with the pandemic, you weren't surveying people with that process. We're getting back into that to not only talk about where do you live, where you're going, how's our service. We're getting back into that information. So we'll have a lot more of that this year. Right now, it really is anecdotal. We're doing some on-board surveying, talking, just capturing as best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the marketing was like, show the idea. It's almost like a promotional gimmick.
Right.
Not,
it's free anyway.
It is free, but like show it to like engage. And one other follow-up is whether or not we, figure out the way to tie to driver education and other things to make sure it's multimodal transportation education. As like getting bodies on buses to the experience of where you can go to. Whether it's the state level or local system level, collaborate on, I think it's just experience.
Yeah.
So how do we tie in the marketing knowledge to experience and get people to understand the balance?
I think
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Mr. Senator Commissioner. Because we actually been having conversations from the other side. So I've been asking both on the school division side through my my hat as the Joint Development Task Force Vice Chair, but also from the Prince William County side, to get us to start on both sides, school division and county, to survey how the workers get to work. Whether it's the school division employees, central office, individual schools, but also the county organization, because we have facilities all over the place. And frankly, some of them already have bus stops, but even in a meeting that was in a month ago, there was a schools employee who's lived here her entire life, and she did not know that the fares were free. So it's that kind of outreach, but also the surveying, to your point, you have to let that data, because I think there's a certain number of the population that's low-hanging fruit, that we just knew how they were getting to work currently, and then we find out they're driving, saying, hey, by the way, do you know there's a route, a free route on a bus that can take you just down the street from your house to the school you work at, or the central office, or to the court building, or whatever it is. We have those routes. A lot of them already exist. We just need to connect that information to that. And then frankly, have better, to your other point, public service outreach and communication about it. So make it, so you can cultivate that culture that we need to. I agree.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I'll come back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Going back to the budget discussion, we've utilized all of our federal funds from COVID, I imagine, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then just flagging, and I'm sure we are following and tracking, I guess there'll be surface transportation reauthorization in Congress next year, so I imagine with us actually utilizing all of our COVID funds, perhaps we need to start pushing for where we can get some additional federal funds. They're just flagging that, and then we have numerous members of the General Assembly here. I won't go on my tirade about spending from the state, but obviously it'd be great for us to continue our discussions around a long-term permanent solution towards local transportation systems. Thank you, Delegate Henson, for your support.
You're welcome.
You wanna get in back?
Don't forget I'm over here.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, wait, we got.
Mr. Chair, I think I articulated at our last meeting, the percentage of funding that actually comes from state funds.
Yeah, I mean, it's significant with the past.
Yeah, maybe.
We just need a permanent source, but yes.
I'm gonna go backwards. And my question is about kids riding buses, because this got interestingly enough, I got asked a question this morning at our legislative breakfast by one of our school board members. If a kid misses the school bus, Omni Ride's not coming and picking them up and dropping them off at the school, right? They have to find a bus route that may or may not mean Manassas are not running necessarily all that frequently. And they still gotta walk from wherever it can lead back over to the school. Which if you have a truancy issue, I'm not so sure they're going to not get misguided between where they get dropped off at and the school.
The word's Life 360 anyway.
I was trying to make sure it was kind of clear, right? Like, I mean, it is an option and it is free. I think it would be great if, especially at our middle school and our high schools, as part of, an opportunity that the kids are made aware that this is something that they can utilize for weekends or, job opportunities after school or whatever, but I just wanted to make sure since some of that came up, and I know that all of our school divisions are dealing with the truancy and other issues, and we do have kids that the whole getting to school thing is complicated because they're getting siblings off to school or whatever, but I don't want anyone to think that OmniRide, they don't have to take the school bus because OmniRide is gonna pick them up and drop them off at school. That's just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I do think that both of you bring up very good points, and the point of getting students on a local bus for the experience of understanding. And we know the bus is free, but I do think that's where the schools could play a role, because I think giving a kid an ID card that says you can ride a bus, even though the bus is free, does allow us to track some data that we're talking about, because I think at the end of all this, for all of us in this room, data is very important to us. Like, if we see the data and the data makes sense and it says that, wow, this is a real opportunity, then we can move further in that direction to do more with it and create different times when a school lets out. Using Freedom High School, for instance, those kids will walk right across the street without a crosswalk. They just mass rush out of that school and they're walking home. I don't know where they're walking to, but imagine if an OmniRide bus didn't pull up to that bus shelter and they knew that bus could take them home or take them to where they're going, then they could get on that bus, because that bus takes them all around Prince William County and really Dale City and it's eastern end of the county. So I think data is important when you look at, but I think somewhere in there we should create some type of an ID system that can be tracked. Now, the schools play a part in this because we know all that stuff costs money. So if they're gonna make ID cards, I think the schools should look at something like that to really create, how do we get these kids another experience, more than just getting to school and getting home, but understanding local transit, and maybe you don't even need to buy a car when you're 18. Excuse me, your parents don't need to buy them a car when they're 18. And they understand local transportation and the fact that this bus it's been free for a while. Local bus routes have been free. I don't know how many people in Prince William County really know that our local bus routes are free.
They don't.
So, and I have one question too, to the grant position that we have, and it's funded by grant. Is that an ongoing expensive funding, or will at some point we?
No, that as long as the I think that's really, as long as the van pool program is going and that working with GWRC on those funds together, they will be paying that fee to us. Yep.
That's great to know. Yes. Okay, that's that. There we go. Commissioner Gordy.
I have one question, but it's related to one of the informational items that's on the agenda. And it's related to the motor fuels tax revenue.
Yes.
Could you sort of explain what I'm looking at here to try to understand? Because it looks like we only have July numbers and just trying to understand, it looks like we're having good numbers.
Yes. We are, there's always a delay in receiving that,
Yeah.
as you might know.
So just, if you just kind of walk through and explain what I'm looking at.
Very, I can pull it up here, but very, very briefly, I think that we get our estimates from Virginia Department of Taxation. They tell us basically what we should be expecting. And what we have been seeing is the numbers are coming in a little bit higher than that. I think the other element that I would mention with that is that with the interest rate environment that's out there, we also receive some interest that helps the cause as well too. So what you'd be seeing in there is receipts perhaps being a little bit higher than we would have expected, as well as receiving some interest because the interest rate environment is pretty positive right now. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell, unless there was something more specific.
Well, so when you go down, you talk about the fund balance, and then the outstanding adopted resolution. So what I'm assuming is, because you have it broken down by jurisdictions. So basically, as this thing goes through, we're going to be looking at, how each county or jurisdiction is tracking in relation to its contribution.
Absolutely.
To OmniRide.
Absolutely. And not only that, when the final information that will be forwarded to the jurisdictions after December will include that level of detail broken out in there as well. So what our expectations are for that and where we're tracking at the current time.
So, we're tracking well ahead of what was budgeted.
Well, that was a very good month.
Positive, so.
Absolutely. Yep.
Good. Thank you.
Of course.
We got.
I just thought about something. When you talk about the three boxes you had with the jurisdictional
Yes.
accountability up there, and I was looking at Dumfries. Have we, well, this may be an opportunity. Have we looked at the fact that we have the casino there? Is that something that you've been talking about in terms of funding? What that looks like in terms of service? Is that an opportunity for us? to talk about?
Dumfries has not identified funding, providing any resources whatsoever, and the casino has expressed no interest.
Okay. Okay. Good deal. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Hearing none, there's no more questioning. Okay. Well, thank you. Phil, thank you for that.
And any questions, please reach out at any point and I'd be happy to hop on a call or whatever
And I was literally gonna say that, because there's your man, and there's your budget committee. You know who they are, so got any questions, please reach out to them. Where are we now? Oh, we got 2 action items. So I'm just gonna read a quick description of these action items. Authorize the executive director to implement new commuter service along the I-66 corridor and eliminate the Gainesville Reston commuter bus route 618, which we'll speak to a little bit. And then the second one is authorize the executive director to award a contract to Subsurface Technologies Incorporated for the replacement of the transit center underground fuel storage tanks and fueling equipment. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion, Commissioner Bodie, second, Commissioner Holmes. Any discussion?
Is that for both motions or?
Yes, we're gonna roll these both into 2. Would you like a brief description? And I can tell you just, the fuel tanks back here, we've been discussing for a while. And so I think we're finally at that place where we're gonna get those replaced. So that's a definite must do. And I'll let Bob speak to the changing of the routes along there.
Very briefly, I kind of described it in the description of the public outreach we did, the new routes coming in from Front Royal and Warrenton that'll augment the already strapped services out of the university lot. And then the route for elimination is just the extremely underperforming route out to Reston. So those it's just bundled as a singular resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it when I was out there with you, it was like 6 people, so it makes sense.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment that I appreciate Karen reaching out with with alternative options for people. You know, it doesn't make sense to run a fixed route with 6 people, but you know, we're not just gonna leave them high and dry. Here are some options, or here are some things you can do. So I just appreciate that.
And I also wanna say, it's when we say we talk to everybody, we literally talk to everybody. We gave everyone a flyer. Joe, I mean, you personally, I think, talked to every single person.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, but it was easy because there's so few.
And it's easy because it's true, yeah. But it is nice that we do care enough to have that personal touch. It's not just like I
It
said,
is.
too bad, so sad.
Right.
Responded to the gentleman here, so that's cool.
So with that, Mr. Chair, those are your 2 action
All
items.
right, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bowe, and probably seconded by Commissioner Holmes. Hearing all discussions, no more discussions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those, any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you all. And just moving, I think that's, so thank you very much for that too, all right? We're in the meeting. Yes, we are, during this time. So just a reminder, PRTC nominating committee will be elected in December. Each jurisdiction should be thinking about who will be appointed to PRTC in the DRE Operations Board for 2025.
And one item of note, you will be getting an email from me at the chair's request to remind you to be thinking about that. You will probably get a follow-up to remind you to be thinking about that in about another week after that, but that is a chair's request.
Yes, yes. And I believe that's gonna be that. I'll get this out too. Reminder, the PRTC Budget Committee will meet virtually on November 13th at 2 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. to review information for the December meeting. And just on a personal note for me, I just wanna send out my condolences to, Brian Rhodes' family. If you know that story, it's a very tragic story, so wishing them the best in this journey. It's gonna be a tough one, I know, and I know that the family here at PRTC and the Keolis family will miss him dearly. I know that he's been a real blessing to the organization, so just want to send out my condolences to the family and to the team here at PRTC and Keolis. So, all right, going around the room, we'll start with the always talkative Commissioner. Yeah, all right, sir.
So, DRPT, the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, will have a new director, starting on, Tuesday, November 12th. Tiffany Robinson, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Governor's Office, will become the new DRPT director on Tuesday. As you know, the director is actually the member of the board for DRPT, so, but it's also a member of NVTC who meets on the same night, so we will be making decisions on who covers what meetings. My feeling is you'll probably still see me.
Yes, love it. But congratulations to the new director, so.
Let's see. No, I think I heard a lot about legislative updates, and I'll say, just as a reminder, make sure you're talking to your delegates and senators, because a lot of us are capped in how much bills we are carrying. So do it quick, because a lot of us, we are capped. So just throwing that out there.
No comments?
Just very quickly, again, I mentioned it earlier, but it was a few brief interactions I saw with the Omni Ride staff at Chin Park that were dropping people off and helping folks. And some of them were folks that had mobility issues, other ones were folks that had health issues, wearing masks and whatnot, but the staff, well, it wasn't just, hey, drop them off. Good to see you, come back, good to see you again. Like, they actually got out, helped them out of the bus, or the van, I should say. It sounded like it was a hybrid van even, by how it sounded when it was driving, but they made sure they got connected with the people that were doing the election official work. They then came back. There was a gentleman that was in a wheelchair that they brought back onto the van and took him away. So wanted to commend you all on that. Also want to go back to the town hall that we had. And that was a really good experience. We were talking to folks that were literally there on both sides, the slug side, the Omni Ride side. And you definitely fostered two very young new commuters. So I brought my son, my daughter, Jemison and Miles with me. And Jemison, my 1.5-year-old, trotted over, was like waving at the bus driver, was trying to get on one of the Omni rides. So I had to like grab her so she wouldn't get on the bus. But to that point that we were talking about earlier, Commissioner Senator Jeremy Pike, one of the biggest things that we have to really work on, both as our commissioner hats and the ambassador work that you were talking about earlier with the new routes, but frankly in our own jurisdictions, is really start fostering that culture of changing just from I jump in my car to go somewhere to, hey, there is a bus that's available. And if for whatever reason, the bus isn't the best option for you right now, what is that barrier? Is it the frequency? Is it when it comes? Is it there's too long of a wait between where you're trying to get and where it eventually goes? Because we know that's an issue too, because some of these routes, you start on Galveston Court, it takes you maybe 45 minutes to get to White Mills, as an example. Starting to have those real conversations. So then we get going back to budget, how can we tweak those menu options to best start to shift that culture? So thank you so much for the discussion. I think we had a really, really good discussion around all those issues. And I appreciate everyone's work.
Thanks. Yeah, great night work tonight. Just a few things out of Manassas. December 6th, so Santa comes to downtown, Old Town. Santa comes in. Thanks, O'Veary's left, but he comes in by VRE, and we have lots of performances and light the Christmas tree there in Old Town. So the festivities start around 5:30. And then on December 7th, starting at 10 a.m. is the Manassas Christmas Parade. I don't know, it was like 78, 80, 100, I don't know, something like that. It's been around forever, longer than I've been alive. And so welcome everyone to come down. We just had the Veterans Parade last weekend, and it was great weather. Couldn't have asked for better weather. So hopefully the same thing will happen for the Christmas parade. So if you don't have plans, please come out and join us.
Yes.
I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And December 7th is the Manassas Park Light Parade. So we certainly invite everyone who can make it to come and enjoy the lights. It's very festive.
Pass.
Pass.
Pass. Thank you, Ingrid. Chairman.
Well, you got anything in the bag?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Sir.
I would like to say, personal thank you, happy Veterans Day for the men and women in this room who served our country bravely, proudly, and especially those who took care of the home front while others were gone. So it's not just a veterans only, it's the entire family. So thank you very much for your service.
Well said. I will end by wishing good luck to one of our own commissioners, Monica Gary, who is going to be entering a body, I guess like a fitness competition this Saturday. So first time for her ever. So she's been training all year. So I just want to put that out there to wish her luck on winning that competition. So with that, we are now adjourned at 8:35.
All right. We might have to keep him around. He actually.
And I think that went pretty.
Yes.
Yeah, look at
Yeah. I know.